Each leg of the K-25 building's U-shape was nearly a half-mile long. In 1945, there would have been hundreds of workers here, day and night. K-25 had 4 levels: the basement vault level, the cell floor, the pipe gallery level, and at the top, the operating floor. We entered the building on the 2nd level from the bottom, the cell floor. Alleys through the cell floor provided vehicle access to swap out equipment, to transport personnel, and to deliver materials.
On the cell floor, there were thousands of high-horsepower motors, thousands of high-capacity compressors, circulating the uranium hexachloride gas. Now, all this machinery got hot, and there was no AC. K-25 had over 6,000 pumps and motors running 24/7. It wasn't unusual to go to one of these buildings and work 10 minutes on some of these jobs, and you'd sweat so much you'd be soaking wet, you know? Water running out of your shoes. Very, very hot, very noisy, very physically demanding.
There were 545 cells in K-25, and each cell had to be vacuum tested to be airtight. The vacuum test equipment was mostly run by women.
The pipe gallery is the next level, just above the cell floor. There were miles of piping that connected all of the equipment together into one continuous process.
And the piping system had to be absolutely leak tight. It was all a welded system, and there were thousands of welds, and all these welds had to be tested before they could start the process. Dozens of workers, most of them women, had to crawl up over the pipes to test every inch of the welds before we could ever start up the process. We joked about the pipe gallery. You really needed to be about 4.5 feet tall, because you need to do metal cutting and welding. There was rock wool insulation, and anytime you walk over that, it would just kind of boil up. You come out of there red as a beet and want to scratch all over.
Continuing on up the stairs, we reached the operating floor, which was the top floor of the building. Hundreds of these large gray air ducts vented heat from the building. The operating floor housed instrumentation to monitor the ongoing process. It also had controls to stop, start, and bypass components of the process. The operating floor also housed coolant pumps to maintain optimal operating temperatures in the process cells. Cell instrument panels above each cell provided operating data and controls for pressure, temperature, and other information. There were also electrical panels that controlled the breakers to start and stop the cell motors. 2 cell panels were connected, which allowed one operator to monitor 2 cells. There were over 500 cells in the K-25 building, initially requiring an operator for each 2 cells. Monitoring was around the clock. The majority of these operators were women. In 1945, most of the menfolk were off fighting in the war.
I got a job at this station watching gauges, turning valves, letting our supervisor know if anything was out of order. I was good at whistling, real loud whistle with 2 fingers. When I saw something unusual on the process, I would whistle for the foreman. And see, as noisy as it was in there, I could still overcome the noise with that whistle of mine. I go a whole mile down the corridor, right?
You had to operate these valves, what we call taking a cell off stream or putting a cell on stream. And it was pretty hard work. Some of these valves were huge, and they were pretty hard to turn.
The distance of the length of the building around the exterior of the U-shape was more than a mile. You understand there were bicycles available? If you were lucky, you got a bike to ride to something that needed attention.
Cleanliness control was very important on the operating floor. On the evening shift, about 30 of us would go through, sweeping the floor. We'd line up side by side, right next to each other with the big brooms, and we would sing hymns. Be just pushing the brooms and going down there and singing.
Now we will skip downstairs 2 levels, past the pipe gallery, back down to the cell floor, at the stairs to the basement, or vault.
The vault area would be the basement of K-25, and within that area you had some different types of equipment.
You had air supply fans. You had some cooler-top heat exchangers, oil lubrication systems for the pumps and motors, and a lot of other equipment down here.
Miles of high-voltage electrical cables coursed through the basement vault. These cables could be as thick around as your arm. The massive concrete columns that you see support the weight of the upper 3 floors of the building and hundreds of tons of process equipment above. Now you have gotten a look at all 4 levels of the K-25 building.
I knew the plant was making atomic material, but I didn't know what they wanted this stuff for. Neither did anybody else that I talked to. I thought in terms of power, run the ships, maybe even big airplanes or dirigibles, or power plants. Never thought of a bomb until they shot one off.
See, there's a problem. Too much pressure in stations 5 and 6 in this cell. I'll call downstairs to the operator to attempt to place the stage 5 control.
It's Hiroshima, August 6, 1945. Nagasaki, August 9th, 1945. Peace. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. VJ Day, September 2nd, 1945. International Friendship.
We're still in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and we are at the American Museum of Science and Industry. There's a lot to see in here. This museum, I like it so much because it says, okay, we created this massive weapon, but what now? We used it, but what now? What happens? What can we do with this knowledge? And it goes into a lot of the science aspect and the future, and I really like that because, you know, sometimes those of us that are history buffs, we get caught up in the past, but it's important to know the future as well and what's coming. So I hope you enjoy this tour. Well, we have finished this tour of the American Museum of Science and Industry in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope it inspires you to want to come here as well and learn about the past and the future.